think it's kind of nice to have this for reference. So I'll record, and we're going to begin with a quiz because that's what we do. At least we will once Glenn Marie comes back. So before we have a quiz, does anyone have any questions? Any questions on the? Oh, by the way, guys, homework. Some of you are already behind in your homework, and it's the first week. So it's okay to be behind in your homework eventually. I mean, I know you've got lots of classes and things go wrong, and we do drop 2 things, but don't get behind this early, you know? So I just said that to everyone. There was homework due at 8 this morning. I know it's 8 this morning, but catch up, get it done. Don't fall behind yet. Give yourself a chance to have a relaxed quarter, right? And remember, if the homework confuses you once you try it, then set up an appointment with me and I'll help you through it. But at least give it a try each day. Otherwise, you're going to get behind. Yeah, Leslie, what would you like to say?
Did you assign it on Canvas? I didn't see it.
Yeah, I signed it on Canvas.
Huh. Okay, because I just see the reading.
Yeah, so there's 2 separate. Is it not due till Friday? What do you see on your Canvas something that says graded assignment 1 or assignment 1, or maybe it's called homework 1? I changed the names of these things here. Let me take a look. Hold on a second. I will take a look.
Yeah, I see homework 1 due Friday.
Oh, no one's behind. I take it back. Okay, I've been really embarrassed now. I saw that we actually got one handed in, so I assumed it was due today because I set these things up a week ago, and my memory is hardly perfect for dates. It's not perfect for dates at all. So no, none of you are behind. Why are you letting me lecture to you about being behind when nobody's behind yet? It's not due till Friday. I don't know what's wrong with you. Okay, so having said that, now remember, guys, we talk about quizzes. The purpose of a quiz is threefold. One purpose is to find out what we remember from a previous lecture to make sure we know what to study. One thing is to find out what we've forgotten from last month or before, to find out what we have to study. And so those are really its purposes. And I do drop 2 of them, and it's only 10% of your grade. So I never want these quizzes to be something to make you nervous, but it does tell you what you remember from last lecture and the important stuff from last year. So let's start it just by taking that first quiz. As usual, jump on, take the quiz. It's in Canvas. It's quiz 1. And then give me a thumbs up when you're done so we could go on to the subjects of today's class. All right? So jump in and then tell me when you're ready with a thumbs up, mechanical or otherwise.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So the question says, in a dominant seventh, which way and by how much does the seventh resolves? This is the seventh of the chord.
Of the chord.
Got it.
Yes, thank you. All right, guys. So quizzes are done. Who's got questions on the quizzes? Questions, you can send them into the chat or you could just ask them live. Okie doke. So we're going to start by reviewing a little bit of what we talked about on Monday and then move on from there. So let's just talk about Monday. And I'm going to share for you a finale file. And I'm going to show you again how we do. Is that share happening? Yes. How we do diminished chords. So, or seventh chord. So let's start with key of C major. And let me ask you this. What degree of the scale? Oh, by the way, Daviel's question was a great question. In a dominant seventh chord, the seventh of the chord wants to resolve downward by step. The seventh degree of the scale is the leading tone, which is the third note of the chord, and it wants to resolve upward by step. So the seventh can be two different things, the degree of the scale. And in your book, they use a little caret over the degree of the scale. So you know that that's a degree of a scale, and otherwise they refer to the chord. But I don't have the ability to put the caret on, or at least I don't think I do in Canvas. So it's the seventh of the chord. So that was a great question because it could have two different meanings. All right, what degree of this major scale? Well, it's the seventh. We're talking about the seventh chord. It's acting a dominant. What kind of chord is it? Major, minor, augmented, or diminished? You could just shout it, or you could throw it in the chat. Let's do it in the chat so no one gets woken up. My chat went away. So let's try this again. In the seventh degree of a major scale, you build a chord. Is it major or minor, diminished or augmented? You guys are typing too slowly. Someone give me an answer. Please, someone give me an answer. Yeah, it's diminished. So remember, 1, 4, and 5 in major are major. 2, 3, and 6 are minor. So there's 3 majors, 3 minors. The remaining one, 7, is diminished. And we're learning these 7 chords now. They act just like dominants, but they're diminished chords. So now, in the key of C, what note is the root of a 7 chord? What letter name? So you can count up from C7 or you can count down 1. It's a B. So let me do a B chord here. I'm going to do it right on finale where you can see it. B chord. And that's a B diminished chord. You can tell because F to B is a tritone. It's not a perfect fifth. It's a tritone. It's a diminished fifth. That gives you a diminished chord here. But we're talking about seventh chords in this chapter. So I add the next note, which is a seventh. In major, what kind of seventh is that, guys? Is it a major, minor, diminished, augmented? What kind of seventh? And you can see it right there if you want to figure it out. Type me in an answer. Now, it's not diminished seventh. The way to tell is what happens if we reverse it. So if I put it in inversion, whoops, sorry, that's not the inversion. Gave you the wrong notes there. If I put it in inversion, there's the inversion. That's a major second, A to B. So major second, when we invert it, you know, they should add up to 9. So 2 plus 7 is 9. We know it's a seventh, and major becomes minor. Remember that? So that's a major second, so that must be a minor seventh. So the 7 chord in major, we have a couple names for it. I'm going to switch now to the white screen to remind you of this. So the 7 in minor, we make it small letters because it's a diminished chord, and we give it a little circle for diminished. When we add the 7th, we're in a major key. So our 7 chord is got a minor 7th, so we call it a half diminished. We put a line like that through the circle. And that just means it's a 7 half diminished, which means the chord is diminished and the 7th is minor. We also can call that a diminished hyphen minor chord. Diminished, the first word refers to the chord, then second word refers to the 7th. I'll type that in a second. But that's the kind of chord that the 7th is in all major keys, a diminished chord with a 7th. Now, if I'm talking about macro analysis, I just write it as a B half diminished 7th. I'll just write it in there, half diminished 7. Because macro analysis, we just have the chord. That symbol tells us that it's a diminished chord. The slash tells us it's a minor 7th. If I'm in inversion, I write the same notation. Let's say first inversion, I put the little half diminished thing in there, and then I'd write it as 6, 5, first inversion, or second inversion's 4, 3, or third inversion's 4, 2. But if I'm in this notation, which is our macro notation, we don't care about inversions, so we just write it as always as a B7. If I'm in pop notation, there's a lot of different notations. There's the same one, B half diminished 7th. There's also B where you write DIM 7. There's one where you write a B minor flat 5 7. It's actually put the 7 first, then the flat 5 in parentheses. That tells you it's a minor chord, then you flat the 5, makes a diminished chord. So there's a lot of different notations in the pop world, and we'll talk about them more later. But when we're doing a macro analysis, no Roman numerals, just names. We just name the chord, we put half diminished. And otherwise, Roman numeral, we put the chord and the 7, or if it's inversion, we put the inversions 4, 3, 4, 2. Who's got a question about that, guys? Do we have an understanding of that? Okay, and then we go back to our finale file, so I could show you how it resolves. I got a thumbs up even. Wow, life is good. And if I make this thing, if I spread this out, it's easier to see. But if I'm going to resolve this, it's a dominant chord, which means that it's going to go to what? It's going to go to what chord, or what wants to go to what chord? You can never tell where it's going to end up, but where does it want to go? I go back to my chat. Yes, to the 1 chord. Dominants go to the 1. So in the key of C, it wants to go to a C chord. The 7th is the A. See the top of it's the A. It's going to go downward by step. Whoops. I just messed up my keyboard, sorry. Downward by step. So it's going to go to a G. The A is going to go down to a G. Really? Okay. Not the F, just the G. Let's try it again. It goes down to a G. There we go. The B is the leading tone. It wants to go up to a C. So let's do that. And then these other two notes, you've got a tritone here. That's the F to B. The tritone wants to go in contrary motion, so the F wants to go down to the E. The D can go to any note it wants, and look at that. It resolves to a C major chord. Now, if I do that in 4-part harmony, I just put the B in the bottom again, pick any note to be in the tenor. In this case, I'm going to again do the 7th of the tenor and the middle two notes in the alto and soprano. That's closed spacing. The tenor's within an octave of the soprano. And then where's it going to go? The leading tone goes up. The 7th goes down. The tritone, which is the B to F, wants to go down, and the E can go anywhere it wants. Doubling the root's a good idea. And so this is now the correct voice leading. Go on. Really? There we go. And so that's all there is to doing a 7. Now, the thing about the 7 chord, diminished chords rarely appear in root position. It's not forbidden. It's not wrong, but it's rare. So we have to know them in inversions. Let me do one of the inversions. Let's see, make sure you can see this. So I'm going to do one here. Let's say I have the F in the bass. So let's say it's an F and A in the top, and those voices. Now I'm missing the B and the D. So I'm going to put the B and D like that. Now this is open spacing. I would rather have something up high, but I could see why I'd get into this spacing. There's a 9th here between the tenor and the soprano, so it's not ideal, but it's all right. Now, that leading tone still wants to go up, but first we have the 7th wants to go down. So the 7th is going to go down to the G. The B, the leading tone, wants to go up. We know that. There's a tritone here which tells us that the F wants to go down. Again, these rules are not as hard and fast. The bass and the 7th is the really important one. And now, if the D goes down, we can do that, can we? Make sure there's no parallel. See, A to D is a 4th, so the D could go down and double the C. Sometimes you get a parallel 5th if you have the voices wrong and the D has to go up. But there you go. It's easy. Let's hear what these sound like. Here's with spread out. And now an inversion. Here we go. Functions like a dominant. Dissonant chord resolving to a 1 chord. Piece of cake. That's what we did last time. So guys, go into D major. D major. And write me in second inversion a 7 chord going to 1. Now the easiest thing to do is first write it in root position, just the 7 chord on the treble clef, so you see what the notes are. Then remember, second inversion means that first inversion has the 2nd note on the bottom, second inversion has the 3rd note on the bottom. So put the 3rd on the bottom. Any other note can be above it in any order. Make sure the 7 goes down, the leading tone goes up, and watch out for a parallel 5th. And while you do it, I will do it. Give me a thumbs up when you're done, and we'll compare our answers, okay? So D major, second inversion.
Sorry, Professor, what's the chord again?
It's the 7 to 1, 7 7 to 1 in D major. That's
Oh,
all
D
we're
major.
learning. Yeah, D
Okay.
major. Any thumbs up yet, guys? Okay, I know some people are still working, but let me show you my answer and show you how it works so we can see what's happening, where the problems are, okay? So here is my answer. In the key of D, two sharps, right? D is tonic. So we're talking about the 7 chord. So if I count up, it's D, E, F, G, A, B, A, C sharp is the 7 chord. I can also go down. D is 8. 7's the one right below it. 7's the leading tone. So it's a C sharp diminished chord with a minor 7th. And because it's in the key, it's automatic. There's no accidentals needed. So that's my chord. So I want to resolve that chord to 1, but the assignment was put it in second inversion. So my bass note has to be that third note, the G. So I put the G in the bass. Otherwise, these other notes could be in any voice I want. It just doesn't matter. I just pick them randomly. So I decided to keep things in close position. I'd put the E in the tenor. Boom. The G is already in the bass. So I put the B in the alto and the C sharp in the soprano. Doesn't matter. Now, we look at that. Where's the 7th? The 7th of the chord is the B. 7ths go down by step. So the B goes down to the A. We have to resolve it to a D chord. Doesn't have to be in root position, just has resolved to a D chord. So B wants to go to the A. The leading tone wants to go up to the D, and the leading tone in this case is in the soprano, so it has to go up. It's where we really hear it. So that's going to go up to the D. Now, the tritone is always between those notes there. So tritones like to resolve in contrary motion, so that G wants to go down. So I had the G go down. The E can go to anything. It's not pushed in any direction. So since doubling the root's a good idea, and I don't think I've got a parallel anything doing that, I just had the E go up to the F sharp, double the bass note. It could have gone down to the D and doubled the soprano note. It just doesn't matter. There's no parallels there, so it can go to either note. So this is a 7 chord in second inversion going to 1. And all the voices resolving the way they're supposed to. If you just fill in the voices and follow the rules, you have no choices. It just does this, and this is what it sounds like. Just like they do it in the movies. Who's got questions? Ask me questions.
I put not exactly the same way you did, where I put I went from E to F for the leading tone, but then you went from, I think,
Yeah, the leading tone is not is the leading tone is always the seventh degree of the scale, which is the root of the chord. So the C sharp is the leading tone.
oh, okay. I think that's where I
Yeah.
confused it.
The E can go up. I mean, that's good, but the C sharp really has to. It really wants to badly. I don't say it has to. In the soprano, it has to. If you bury it, you can get away with it not going up, but it wants to badly. So that C sharp, that's the leading tone, because the leading tone is the seventh degree of the scale, which is the root of the seven chord. That's why we call it a seven chord. But these terms get very confusing. So the
Um,
leading tone is the C sharp, no matter what inversion you're in. Go ahead.
so I didn't put the C on that octave. I put it an octave below,
That's
and
fine.
I still went up to a D. Is
That's
that
good.
still- okay?
That's good. And so these notes could be in any order at all. They're random. I could put them in any order. The C sharp wants to go up. So if you have your C sharp go up, it's correct, no matter what voice it's in or what octave it's in. That's
Okay.
absolutely correct.
Okay. Sounds
Good.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, guys? Okay, now I want to practice more, but I have to do one thing before I practice because the way homework works. And guys, I'm skipping something in the chapter in the book that I'm going to come back to, and that's what they call common tone diminished chords. And no, I take it back. That's not in your chapter. I lied to you. That's the second year guys. I teach you too many theory courses simultaneously. So good. This is what happens if we're in major, and it can be in any key, and it can be in any inversion. Minor works the same way, but we have to approach it a little differently intellectually. So here's my seventh chord in C major, right? That's a B. Seventh degree of C major is a B, and there's my seventh chord, half diminished seven. What if I go to C minor? If I go to C minor, I get this chord, which is a B flat, D, F, and A flat in natural minor. And if you look at that, that's a major chord. B flat, D, F is a major chord with a minor seventh. That's what we call dominant seventh or a major minor chord. And that's not going to function as a seven at all. There's no leading tone, right? That's just weird. That's going to try and take you somewhere else. That's a weird chord. So usually we use harmonic or melodic minor. And remember, harmonic minor is we sharp the seventh. Melodic, we sharp 6 and 7. But in harmonic minor, we sharp the seventh. So we put a B natural instead of the B flat. Remember, if we have a tonic chord, let me just put it here. I'm not talking a dominant chord. Let me just put that in here. There's my dominant chord in G minor, and it's C minor. But we always sharp that leading tone. We use the harmonic minor. We sharp the leading tone, and we make it a major chord, the dominant chord. Same thing with the 7 chord. We sharp the leading tone. We make it a real leading tone, and that creates the true dominant chord. So if we compare the the true diminished chord, which functions as a dominant, if we compare the 7 chord for major and minor, the chord is the same, B natural, D, and F. The only difference is this is an A natural, this is an A flat. So we have a diminished chord, but what kind of seventh do we have? If the A natural is a minor seventh, throw it in the chat, guys. What would an A flat be? What kind of seventh would that be? Throw it into the chat. And I gotta get to the chat. There we go.
What key
Okay.
again, Professor?
So the question was, if my major chord, that's a diminished, if my major key, A natural to B is a minor seventh, then if I go to my minor chord key, so I've got A natural, A flat to B, what kind of seventh is that? I've got one right answer so far. Guys, what happens if I take a minor interval and I make it smaller by raising the bottom? I can either lower the top or raise the bottom. You see how that works? Whoops, here it is. So if I we see my fingers. So I have an interval. I can make it smaller by lowering the top. See how it shrinks, or I can make it bigger, smaller by raising the bottom. In this case, I've lowered the top, so I've made the interval smaller. What happens if I take a minor interval and I make it smaller? What do we call that interval? And I got 2 right answers. It's a diminished interval. So remember, guys, major is big, minor is the next size down, diminished is the next size down. Diminished, minor, major, augmented. So when we have major, minor, the minor made smaller is a diminished interval. The major made bigger is an augmented interval. So this minor interval becomes diminished. So our chord, let's switch to the whiteboard. Let me switch to the whiteboard. So now, when we're in a minor key, our 7th chord is diminished just like it was before. So we write it as a small 7 with a circle. But the 7th is also diminished. So we leave the circle unmarked. So if we have a slash, that's a half diminished chord. And that means it's a diminished chord plus a minor 7th. You could also call it a diminished minor chord. The minor, we have a full diminished because the chord is diminished and the 7th is diminished. So we call that a full diminished, or we call it a diminished chord. And again, we just write it in, if it's macro analysis, just put the name of the chord and a circle without a line in it. So I will just write these as text now. So the in major, we have, and I will take that off, we have a half diminished, which is also called a diminished minor chord because it's a diminished chord with a minor 7th. If we're in a minor key, we have a full diminished, which is also called a diminished chord because it's a diminished chord with a diminished 7th. So it's a different chord in the sense that the 7th is a half step smaller, but it doesn't function any differently. So let's go back to looking at this chord. Let's go back to finale. So here's my major chord that's diminished. Here's my natural minor, which isn't anything we can use. This is my harmonic minor, which gives me a full diminished. This was half diminished because I got an A flat here. I'll actually show that to you. I'll put a little accidental on it so you can see it's a A flat. So that's your full diminished, but it works exactly the same way. The 7th has to go downward by step. The leading tone wants to go upward by step. Stop that. Leading tone wants to go upward by step. The 7th wants to go downward by step. You still have a tritone here that wants to go in contrary motion. You have a second tritone here that also wants to go in contrary motion. But again, the risk of parallels, you have to be a little careful. So let's just see what happens. The B, the leading tone goes up to the C. The A flat, the 7th, goes down by step. Then you have a D and an F. Boom. The F wants to go downward because the tritone, the B went up, the F wants to go down, and the D can go up or down. There's another tritone here. Probably should have gone up, but I hate to double the third, so I made it go down. And that sounds great. So let's hear it. Here's your fully diminished chord, and then you'll hear there's your fully diminished chord, and it's going to be followed by your resolution. And here's what it sounds like when it resolves. That's all there is to it. So, guys, work in A minor for a second. We're going to practice doing what in minor. We'll go back and practice major and minor again because I don't think everyone's got it, but we can get a start here. So set up A minor. Remember, in A minor, you're going to have to sharp the leading tone to make the 7th. So first thing you want to do is write the 7th 7 chord, the fully diminished 7th chord, the way you're going to do it. And then write in 4 parts a possible resolution of it. So simple A minor. So first write it in root position, then still in root position, write the 7/7 chord going to a 1 chord. I'm going to do the same thing. Give me a thumbs up when you got it. Okay, A minor. Not if you make you guys feel bad nor nothing, but I'm already done. All that means is I'm much older than you are. So I've been doing it much longer. It's a sign that I'm another year closer to death.
Sir, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
So the base has to be an inversion for the first chord, or does it have to be the leading tone?
Do it. It can be the lead tone. Do it in root position for this one. Root position's rare but not forbidden. So we're going to do it in root position, then we'll practice it in inversions. So keep the bass in root position, the root in the bass. Because I want to make sure we have time to practice one more, I'll show you my answer. So I hope you got pretty close if you weren't finished. But here's my answer. So there is the 7 chord in A minor. Remember, A minor is 1. That's the A chord. So G is 7. But you have to sharp that leading tone. Otherwise, you just stay in the key signature. So it's G sharp, B, D, and F. Now it's in root position. So G sharp's got to be on the bottom. I can put the other notes in any order I want. I spread them out a lot here, so I don't have close spacing, but I just did that so you could see a different resolution. So I put the notes anywhere I wanted to. The F we know is the 7th. We can look at that. That's the 7th of the chord. Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. 7th has to go down. I put it in the soprano. You could put it anywhere. The leading tone is the root. And we're root positions. That has to be the bass that wants to go up. Now, the other voices, the easy way to think about it is these tritones. The D to F sharp, if the G sharp goes up, the D wants to go down. And then the F and B, if the F goes down, the B, they want to go in contrary motion. So the B wants to go up, but mostly you want to make sure you get a full chord. If I follow that, I end up doubling the third. So I could have had one of these voices go to a different note to double it differently, the D or the B. But basically, the seventh has to do this. The leading tone really has to do that. And we get an A minor chord, a 5-1 in A minor, or not 5, a 7-1, but a dominant to 1 in A minor. And it sounds like this. Questions, everybody? Questions?
I came pretty close. I
Okay.
just forgot that we were supposed to, that the rule was the seventh has to go down a step.
Yeah, seventh of every chord throughout all of history will go down by step. That's a rule to like pound it to the brain. You know, I have. It's a funny rule because it happens so often, and yet it's so hard to remember. And I have students who have been with me 3 years who are still having sevenths go up, and I say sevenths go down by step. Oh yeah, and then it sounds better. They, oh yeah, it sounds better. I say, you've been with me 3 years, but it's a hard rule to remember. Go ahead, Glenna Marie.
So that's the leading tone or the root of the chord. That's a seven. That's a 7, and it has to go up. Wait.
Right. Sevenths want to go up to the root. Do. That's it. Always sevenths want to pull up to the tonic. So the
So what's the difference between the 7th at the bottom and the 7th at the top?
Oh, okay. This is the 7th degree of the scale. It's a leading tone. So like we talk about tonic, subdominant, supertonic. Those are the degrees of the scale. This is the 7th degree of the scale. And that's a leading tone and wants to go up. This is the 7th note of the chord. Sevenths of chords want to go down. If you look at the scale in A minor, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the 6th degree of the scale. But it's the 7th of the chord. This is the root of the chord, the 3rd of the chord, the 5th of the chord, the 7th of the chord. So the 7th of a chord goes down. The leading tone goes up. Leading tone refers to the scale. 7th refers to the chord. Music language is very confusing. The guys who invented this weren't thinking. To use numbers for both things is crazy. You know, you get used to it after a while. Okay, we have time to try one more. Use the same key to make it easy, but put this chord in first inversion and try and do the same thing. So 7th still wants to go down. The leading tone wants to go up, but now your bass note's going to be the B, not the G sharp. Okay, everyone, you do it, I do it, and in 2 minutes we'll come back and I'll show you my answer.
Really quick, Professor.
Of course.
If we were to do the chord stacks and in the inversion, where do we put the G? On the very top, or?
Yeah, if you just stack it, it'll go right at the top. I'll show you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it does. You're just moving it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Can this one go in parallel motion, or does it have to be contrary?
You can have parallel motion as long as you don't have perfect fifths or fourths in parallel motion. The book doesn't like it if you have parallel tritones and stuff, but they're wrong. So as long as you don't have parallel fifths or parallel octaves, you can go into parallel motion. The tritones, I should say it simply, the tritones, which is the first and third note and the second and fourth note in root position, they want to go in contrary motion to each other. So the tritones either pull apart or pull in. But it's not a hard and fast rule. Okay, because time is disappearing, I'm going to show you guys the answer and then continue to practice on your own. Here is the answer. So first of all, Glenelle Marie's question was this. If I put this in inversion just as a stack, what does it look like? It looks like that. You just take the bottom note and stick it on the top. Just looks like that. So that B is now my root, a bass note. The root is still a G, G sharp. But the bass note is now the B. So I put the B there. The other notes could be in any order. So the F is still the seventh of the chord. So the F has to go down. The G sharp is still the leading tone of the scale. G sharp wants to go up. And then if we look here, the F to B is a tritone. So if the F goes down, the B wants to go up. The G to D is a tritone. So if the G is going up, the D wants to go down. There's your A minor chord, and it sounds glorious. Here, and I'll just play it from there. And here's the resolution. And it works. Look at that. It's miraculous. It's just mysterious things happening. Okay. Time is up. So if you have more questions, write them down and start Friday's class with them. Tomorrow we'll do ear training. As you know, I will post this video as soon as it finishes doing all the magic it has to do, and then I'll post it. And I'll see you all. Glenelle Marie, you're staying around for a moment. So I'll see you, and everyone else have a great day. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.